In Canada, there are several types of tax penalties that individuals and businesses may face for non-compliance with tax laws. Here are some common tax penalties in Canada. 1. Late filing penalty. If you fail to file your tax return by the due date, you may be subject to a late filing penalty. The penalty is calculated as a percentage of the unpaid taxes owed for each month that the return is late, up to a maximum of 12 months. 2. Late payment penalty. If you do not pay your taxes by the due date, you may be subject to a late payment penalty. The penalty is calculated as a percentage of the unpaid taxes owed, and it accrues daily until the full amount is paid. 3. False statements penalty. If you knowingly or under circumstances amounting to gross negligence make a false statement or omission on a tax return, you may be subject to a penalty. The penalty varies depending on the type of false statement made. 4. Gross negligence penalty. If you knowingly, or under circumstances amounting to gross negligence, participate in actions or fail to act in a way that results in non-compliance with tax laws, you may be subject to a gross negligence penalty. This penalty can be significant and can apply to both individuals and businesses. 5. Failure to provide information penalty. If you fail to provide information or documentation to the Canada Revenue Agency, CRA, as requested, you may be subject to penalties. These penalties can accrue daily until the information or documentation is provided. 6. Failure to remit penalty. If you are an employer and you fail to remit the required income tax, Canada Pension Plan (CPP), or Employment Insurance (A) premiums deducted from your employee's pay, you may be subject to a failure to remit penalty. This penalty applies to both businesses and individuals responsible for remitting these amounts. 7. Failure to register penalty. If you are required to register for certain tax accounts, such as the Goods and Services Tax, Harmonized Sales Tax (GST, HST) account, but fail to do so, you may face penalties. The penalty is calculated based on the period in which you should have been registered and can be a percentage of the tax owing. 8. Repeated failures penalty. If you have a history of non-compliance with tax obligations, you may be subject to a repeated failures penalty. This penalty is imposed when you have previously received certain penalties and continue to be non-compliant. 9. Objection penalty. If you file an objection to a tax assessment or reassessment, and the Canada Revenue Agency deems it to have been filed solely for the purpose of delaying payment of taxes, you may be subject to an objection penalty. 10. Voluntary disclosures penalty. If you make a voluntary disclosure to correct inaccurate or incomplete information in your tax filings, and the disclosure is accepted by the CRA, you may be subject to a penalty. The penalty is typically calculated as a percentage of the tax owed. 11. Trust penalties. If you are a trustee of a trust and fail to comply with your tax obligations, such as filing trust tax returns or reporting income and expenses properly, you may be subject to trust penalties. These penalties can apply to both individuals and corporations acting as trustees. 12. Tax evasion penalties. Tax evasion involves deliberately evading or avoiding taxes using illegal means. If you are found guilty of tax evasion, you may face criminal charges and penalties, including fines and even imprisonment. 13. Failure to withhold penalties. If you are an employer and fail to withhold the required income tax, CPP contributions, or EI premiums from your employee's pay, you could be subject to penalties. The penalties will depend on the amount not withheld and how long the failure persists. 14. Penalties for non-resident tax obligations. Non-residents of Canada who have Canadian-sourced income or who dispose of Canadian property may have tax obligations. Failure to comply with these obligations can result in penalties, including withholding taxes or assessments by the CRA. 15. Failure to meet reporting obligations. Various reporting obligations exist in Canada, such as filing information returns, reporting foreign assets or income, or disclosing certain tax arrangements. Failing to meet these reporting requirements can lead to penalties. Airzol is a leading provider of comprehensive tax solutions. With our team of experienced professionals and cutting-edge technology, we offer efficient and accurate tax services to individuals and businesses alike. From tax planning and preparation to IRS issue resolution, we handle all aspects of taxes with precision and expertise. Our commitment to delivering personalized solutions tailored to each client's unique needs sets us apart. Contact us today at +1 647 232 7909 and discover how Payroll can streamline your tax process and help you achieve your financial goals.